I don't know. I'd like to think I've grown up some. I'd like to think I've learned how to use language better. I'd like to think I've learned how to write music better. Like to think that the band has has improved, that we listen to each other more, that we play better as a unit. But, I mean, I hope that's all gotten better. It's kind of hard to say. I have a lot of trouble. I mean, the first two albums especially, I just can't listen to. And actually, the two albums before this one, Dulcinea I can listen to okay. But it's really just, it's hard to hear. It sounds so odd to me. I mean, that, how can I say this without sound? I mean, that, and I don't know if it's because I'm in the band or not, but I hear that and I think, God, I wouldn't buy that if I heard it. But at the same time I wrote it, I mean, in Dulcinea, I probably would have bought this album. I think I would have been, I mean, hopefully into, but we'll see how I feel about it in 5 years.
How did you feel about In Light Syrup?
In Light Syrup was...
that doesn't count?
Doesn't really count. It was kind of fun because it wasn't supposed to be anything other than a collection of random pieces. There's a standard I hold a real record to, where you've sat there, you've tried to get the best possible group of songs, and you've tried to choose the ones that go together the best, and you've tried to make it sound excellent and get really great performances and have it be a complete entity. And this thing had no, it was leftovers. And, it's like when you're cooking a dinner for a bunch of people and you want it to be just a really great dinner, you're going to take a lot of time to prepare it. You're going to do it right. But if you're alone and you're kind of tired, you're just going to reheat whatever is in the refrigerator and eat that down.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it opens with the song Brother, which sounds like kind of the song a band plays with the second or third encore and then says goodnight. That's the opening song.
Yep.
So, I guess that one is a little bit different. He uses the term guitar band, which had not really occurred to me, although I guess it does apply to you guys. And he was wondering if you follow the adventures and misadventures of other guitar bands such as REM and U2. Do they share anything in common with you other than the
Well, there's guitars. They're actually, I mean, the funny thing is those are two of the other guitar... Usually I think of guitar bands and I think of lots of solos. And REM and U2 are both really not into solos. Yeah,
that's why, when you say guitar band, also you guys I don't really think of it as a guitar band.
Well, I guess in the sense that they're guitar bands, I mean, it's the main instrument. But we're all team players much more than I'm kind of a hack. I mean, Todd, I think, is a really brilliant guitarist, but I think he's brilliant because he plays as little as possible. He's very atmospheric. He's more into texture and tone than he is into his chops. I mean, I think as a whole, the band just really isn't a chops band. It's more about what works for the song and trying to get that as good as possible and do as little as possible to make the song work really well. I don't know. I mean, the thing about U2 and REM, less than the guitar band, that I think is similar to us is that those were both bands that occurred spontaneously and occurred, at least pretty young. I don't know, there's something about the first band a person is in. I mean, a lot of bands come up and everybody's been in 10 bands. They got together, there were ads put out in the paper, and you can concoct something. And you can get really good musicians together and get a great band out of it. But I think there is also something special to the first band a person's been in. I mean, that you start playing when you're a teenager, when you're still in high school, and you learn how to play your instruments in the same room, and you learn how to write songs with these people in your presence. And I mean, that creates a signature that I think can be really hard for a band to create out of thin air. I mean, you can do things, sonically or whatever, but there's a way that the four of us play together that could never happen if we just got together last year. It's spending 11 years doing it since we were very young and very green, and working to where we've gotten. And I think that's what, bands like U2 and REM, that's like the thread that as they go through their ups and downs, whatever they may try to do, they're actual bands. And there are a lot of bands that have there's the Waterboys, which is Mike Scott. There are a lot of bands that are kind of basically one guy, and then the rotation of whoever else is there to support. I don't know.
I guess it's a case of the band taking on a personality of its own, the total being greater than the sum of the parts.
Hopefully, yeah. And I mean, now that I hear REM less and less in reference to us, and so it means, and I've heard even new bands, supposedly people say they sound like Toad the Wet Sprocket, instead of saying they sound like REM. So at least it means we've been around long enough to have an identity of our own, finally.
You've developed into a reference.
What?
You've become a reference.
That's a good. It's a good point to be.
He says a lot of people call a lot of people. I think this is maybe this one or two people said this, but he says some people call you too naive, too serious, too earnest. Toad the Wet Sprocket, that is, rather than yourself personally. He says, how would you argue? What sort of rebuttal would you have for people who pose those accusations?
They're probably right.
Not exactly a rebuttal.
No, it's not exactly a rebuttal. We have a lot of really pretentious or over-earnest or over-emotional songs. Or maybe they're just earnest enough and emotional enough. I mean, if you listen to it and you go, God, what an idiot, then it's too much. And if you listen to it and it makes you feel something, it's about right. There's some of it is really dramatic. And I don't know, our interviews can sometimes take a dramatic turn as well. I kind of prefer that people would complain that we're over-earnest than complain that we're a light band with nothing to say, which in the States from, the real alternate tastemakers, who basically, I think, heard All I Want, and then every time they get a new album, they throw the tape away and then write the review before having heard it. I would rather get accused of being kind of pretentious, and I mean, I've been waiting to get accused for that. Instead, we've usually been called a lightweight boy meets girl band, and that really bugs the shit out of me. I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I mean, U2 was pretentious for a long time. A lot of people have, they get something passionate and you want to say it, and you may fail, in which case it's really, it's overblown and nothingness, and you may hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you get something that speaks to other people. I would rather try for more and fail than try for less, personally. But I can understand if somebody thinks it's silly.
Do you feel a certain sense of detachment from other, say, other musicians the same age as you? Do you think that they're sort of on a different wavelength than you?
Some are, some aren't. I mean, I only know. I mean, do you mean musically or do you mean personally? It's such a.
I mean, just like, say for example, you could be considered part of the Nirvana generation, I guess.
We were pre-Nirvana.
Yeah, I know. The band came out before. I'm saying like age-wise, though. You guys should be whining more. you should be pleading victim status or whatever.
Oh, we whine, but we do it in a kind of pop way.
He says, for example, Beck is a year or so younger than you. And I think
and infinitely more talented. What?
Maybe he's an example of, say, alternative music now, or maybe an example of